Go ahead.
Thank you, Jeff. I call the Village Board of Oregon to order for Monday, October 21st, 2024. Ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Bashan.
Here.
Higgins.
Here.
Menke.
Here.
Kirchdorfer.
Here.
McDaniel. Here. Peterson. And Van Campen.
Here. Thank you. Approval of September 25th, 2024, and October 7th, 2024, Village Board meeting minutes, if correct, and corrections of mistakes, if any. I'll look for a motion to approve. Tom and Jason, questions, corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 4, public appearances, comments, and communications. Items for discussion and/or possible action. A, presentation from representatives of the Oregon Youth Center. Yes, please. Thank you. You state your name and where you're from, and speak directly into the mic,
Okay.
please. Pull them a little closer. Thank you.
And I'm trying to pull up your file, but it's very, very big.
It is, because I put a video in there.
Let me,
Can you pull up the PDF version? of
that's
it?
what I've tried, and it's, here's what I'm gonna do, is I'm gonna stop the,
You can transfer it over to me, Jeff, and I can pull it up here quick.
okay.
I have it up.
Well, we can start while you're pulling it up if you want.
Your intro? Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay, it should have, switching over, game mode.
I won't have the video though.
Won't?
No.
Okay. It
All
was
right.
just a cute kid video. We'll put it on the website or something.
There
You
we
can
go.
watch it later.
Is it out on YouTube?
We can put it on YouTube, yeah. No, it's not. We just
Yeah.
put it together for this, but the file got too big.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Like this.
Yes.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Brandon Lancarrick and I'm the director of the Oregon Youth Center. Before I continue with my speech, I'd like to say that I get paid to hang out with middle schoolers and not give speeches, so please bear with me. I work at the Oregon Youth Center because I enjoy strengthening the community and building up this organization. We're a nonprofit organization founded in 2014 by a small group of community members. Our mission is guiding, empowering, and strengthening youth in the Oregon School District. We provide a safe and fun place for 5th through 9th graders after school and during the summer. We offer seasonal programs to keep kids engaged and motivated. Some of our programs include boxing, swimming, weightlifting, and creativity club. Since school started in September, our current activities have been weightlifting, creativity club, game days, and bingo has become a group favorite, and creativity club. Organized rec sports. Typically, we have around 200 kids enrolled each year, coming from the RCI, OMS, and Forest Edge schools. We see on average 25 kids each day, and our goal for enrollment this year is 300. Sorry, I'm just seeing my notes for the presentation. We have a group of 5 high school students who come each day, and they receive their they're coming to receive their 40 hours of community service. The local Oregon Food Pantry will often donate food along with community members who have an interest in the Oregon Youth Center. On occasion, Oregon police officers will stop by and play basketball with students between calls, and this has been a great way for students to build relationships with positive role models in the community. We recently became the charter organization for 2 out of the 3 Boy Scout groups in Oregon, Troop 50 and 750. We provide a place for their meetings, and they help us out with fundraisers and community events. The Oregon Youth Center is a very important asset to the community. The OYC is a free drop-in center, so no matter your financial situation, your kids can come and enjoy the only child-friendly space within a 10-mile radius for this age group. Kids from any of the Oregon schools can take a bus here. We have several Forest Edge students who would not be able to join if it weren't for our buses. Parents often work late and do not feel comfortable leaving their young child home alone, so they come to the youth center. Kids who come here get access to all of our extracurricular activities, which are designed to help them become independent leaders and increase their life skills, which in turn increases their confidence and self-worth. We have a close relationship with the high school, so if a student is struggling with homework, we can help them find a tutor and provide a quiet workspace so that they can succeed in their classes. And that is all I have because we were going to play the video.
Do you want to, are you going to?
I'm gonna say a few things.
Okay, you want to walk through your presentation or
Yeah, keep going.
keep going?
Well, I don't know, do you wanna see these demographics, actually? Maybe we
Very
should look.
interesting.
Yeah, okay, so, reported grade level, so this is out of the kids coming in this school year, 24, 25. Majority are 6th and 7th graders. And then we have 0 for the 9th graders because we make them volunteer once they're in high school, so, because they need to start getting their community service hours anyways. Reported racial identity, pretty similar. We're a little more diverse than what they have in the classroom, but it's pretty similar. And then gender identity, we have majority males coming to the center, but our female population is growing too, so. That was the video, and,
Let me move it, make it look like it's a video.
yeah. It was just the kids saying who they were and why they come to the center, so. My name is Katie Schiefelbein. I have served on the OYC board since 2020, and was recently named the president of the board. And I just wanted to share a few things from a board and funding perspective for all of you. First off, our main purpose as a board is to make it possible for the Oregon Youth Center not just to exist, but to be able to promote youth development, build positive relationships, and provide a safe space where youth can explore their potential. Our two key areas of focus right now are community awareness and increasing our funding. We think that community awareness is crucial to the center. We want parents to get involved, send their kids, and then grow with us as their child, advances through middle school. And without charging a fee for kids to come to the center, we run on a very lean budget, which is really only possible through the Oregon community and the resources that they have collectively provided. And our number one priority is to use these resources to the direct benefit of the kids that come to the center and their families, of course, as well. So Brandon's been working on relationships with the principals at RCI, OMS, Forest Edge, and the high school to build awareness, as well as building relationships with local businesses and area churches. And then the food pantry has always been a key supporter for the center as well. So this slide shows our budget for 2024. It's a $60,000 budget. And our main funding sources are the municipalities of the kids that come to the center. Also, we get funding from the Dane County Department of Human Services, United Way, and then other, this yellow 20% is like other donations, fundraisers that we do, and then grants. So the Village of Oregon is the main supporter within the municipalities. On the next slide, it shows the attendance demographic. 60% of the kids are coming from the Village of Oregon, mostly because of just it's central and in town. They can walk to and from the center. But during the school year, we see an uptick from the town of Oregon, Brooklyn, Rutland Dunn, and some from Fitchburg. That's because they can bus there from school. So parents only have to come pick them up, at the end of the day at 6 o'clock when we close. So it's very convenient for parents. So these are our kind of like a breakdown of what our expenses are. The majority of our expenses go to salaries in order to keep staff on board. Right now, our director position is part-time, moving into full-time as funding increases. And then also of note, this 4% there, that is our programming budget. And the reason we're able to keep it so small right now is because of all of the community involvement that we've had. Food is donated, supplies are donated, programs are led by volunteers in the community. Case in point, Brandon is putting together like a weightlifting class for the kids, and he was able to outfit the entire gym just through community donations. So that's helped us a lot with our budget. We are looking in 2025 to bring our director position to full-time. We would like to add some staff. We are hopeful that, well, this is more for 2026, but that the referendum surveys come in to support additional staff positions at the youth center. I'm curious to see how the community feels about that, but time will tell. And in the meantime, we're working on doing what we need to keep things running. And then our goal for funding for 2025 is to increase our budget by 15,000 to kind of keep moving forward with our goals for the long term. So that is all we have. We can take some questions now, and we want to thank you for having us to your meeting.
Thank you. Questions for Brandon or Katie? Lynn, please.
Thank you. This was really helpful. A quick question for you, and this is purely just out of curiosity, not making a point or anything. How much programming occurs after you close at 6 p.m.? So you had mentioned that you're now partnering with these Boy Scout troops that meet. I'm guessing that they do that after you close. Explain to me how that works. Are they utilizing the space? Do you have to be there? And then how much else utilization are we seeing after 6 p.m. from community groups?
So the Boy Scouts meet every Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Okay.
Both groups are meeting together. And then I believe once or twice on a Thursday as well. Joel back there, he's actually our youth center representative, so he will be taking part in some of their meetings, but he does not have to be there. A way that we get some of our funding is by renting the center. So people have birthday parties or family gatherings. So we kind of treat it as that. They can be there as long as they take care of the space.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tim?
Do you have fundraising events?
We actually just had a big tailgate party where we saw 300 of our community members. So yeah, we're working on getting a lot more of that going on, but it's a long process to put some of those events together.
Well, if you have anything coming up, the whole village is watching. So
Plug it now.
We don't have anything to plug at this time, but we will keep that in mind.
We're having a party next summer.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Brandon and Katie, for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Sorry the video didn't work.
Item 4B, public comment. This part of the agenda allows members of the public to provide information to the village board, including items both on and off the agenda. 15 minutes will be provided of this item with a 3-minute maximum per speaker. Otherwise, the agenda will proceed as posted. Anyone here for public comments? Public comments? Seeing none. Item 5, approval of vouchers in the amount of $556,900 $905.66. Staff recommendation, motion to approve. Jason and Tim, questions, comments?
I just had a question about the marketing for Summerfest was $14,000. Anybody know what we spent that on?
Yeah, well, that's probably better for Leanne or,
Sure.
I mean, I can explain it if you'd like.
Yeah.
It's
It's up to you.
It's for we have a tourism committee and we take in room tax revenues for that. And then the tourism committee provides grants to various organizations upon application. And this was one of their ask, and the tourism committee approved that. Am I leaving anything out?
We're basically a pass-through for those
Yeah.
tourism commission funds, but I believe, is it a 70-30 split?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's 70-30 split.
Yeah, so the
between
room
village
tax-
and the tourism commission.
Right, so village can retain 30% of those room tax dollars and have pretty flexible use for those, and then 70% goes to the tourism commission, so there's a fund that accumulates. And then the tourism commission has an annual contract with the chamber to provide kind of events and marketing, transient tourist services. So there's a number of things for Summerfest specifically.
Yes,
that
so
was
that was
reimbursed.
TV spots, it was radio spots. They also did some print ads in the Observer, as well as, they did do some billboards as well. Some surrounding areas, they got into the Janesville market, and I forget where else, but yeah, it was pretty extensive.
Good.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Lynn, please.
I just have a question on page 13 of these Dorn hardware charges. They don't
Yes.
have a description.
Nuts and bolts.
Got it, thanks.
Sorry, Jeff, this is your purview.
That is right. Yeah, it's just a lot of supplies. We do have an account up there, and when staff are out repairing things, a lot of times it's paintbrushes, it's drill bits or stuff that they need, nuts and bolts. I mean, literally is, sometimes it's just like 214 there, and everything.
So this is mostly Public Works?
It's almost all public works,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion by Jason, second by Tim. This is a roll call vote.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
Beshin,
Yes.
Kirchdorfer,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Van Campen,
Yes.
and Mankey.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 6, consent agenda. Staff recommendation, motion to approve consent agenda items as presented. It's 6A through K. Jason and Lynn. Questions, comments? Tom?
Just had one question on the environmental study activity that's going to happen on apparently the old EMS site. That originally was the Oregon Youth Center, so are we just talking south of that? From Park and Brook Street?
Yeah, it's on Oak Street there, kind of right between the two is my understanding, in that terrace area is where they found it. So, and it came from a leaking underground storage tank, so that's probably how it got into that right-of-way area.
Okay. We don't know the extent of it or anything, we just had any feel it at all for it. It's just, that's why we have to do the study.
Exactly right, yep.
Okay.
Lynn?
I also have some questions about this. So it says that the file was closed in 2004. Who opened the file? Who closed the file? What does the closing of the file mean? I feel like there's a story here that I want to know.
Great question, and one that I unfortunately don't have all of the answers to. So typically what happens, in my understanding, is that contamination or a source of potential contamination is identified and it's reported to the DNR, likely by the owner of that property. they look into it, they found that nothing was moving in that area. It was just kind of static and nobody was doing anything. So essentially, they closed it, said it was stationary there. There was nothing else that had to be done until it's disturbed. And that's where this comes into play. And we have to take a look at it as we start moving things around down in that layer to make sure we're not making the situation worse.
Got it. And then my second question is, the cost of this project, does that fit within our contingency for the Oak Street reconstruction, or is this gonna be a separate line item cost?
This would certainly fit within the contingency of the
Okay.
project.
Fantastic, thank you.
Anybody else? Tim?
Yeah, I just wanted to call out Oregon Baseball, Chalk-T, and One Community Bank for their generous donations to J.C. Park. Thank you for your community support.
Okay. We have a motion by Jason, second by Lynn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item 7, reports of committees, item for discussion and/or possible action. A, 1, Planning Commission, ordinance number 24-21, an ordinance amending the official zoning map for property located at 749 Peterson Trail to the Rural Housing Zoning District and Planned Development Overlay Zoning District related to the Village of Oregon's Well House number 6. This is pretty well detailed in the packet. Anything to add? Questions
There's
for?
questions.
Okay, we can for a motion to approve then. Tim and Amanda. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item 7B, Ad hoc Public Art Committee, 1, ordinance number 24-22, an ordinance amending section 1.16 sub 2 of the Village Code of Ordinances, extending the duration of the Ad hoc Public Art Committee through December 31st, 2026. Staff recommendation, motion to approve. We asked to add to tonight's agenda, so this is just a formality to approve this. We have a Carleen, is a motion, and Jason. Questions, discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 8, unfinished business, items for discussion and/or possible action. Agreement between the Village of Oregon and OPM Architects for the Oregon Area Senior Center concept design in the amount of $55,000. We'll get a motion on the table. Tom and Amanda. Someone want to address this? I know it's detailed in our packet. Any questions from the board?
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? This was basically discussed at the last meeting, and direction was given to start negotiating a contract with OPN, so that's what has happened.
We also included the cost comparison, Tim, that you asked for last time, so,
Thank you.
and Jeff, I put that together. If there's any questions, he's happy to answer them, I'm sure.
Questions?
No.
Lynn, please.
So math has never been my strong suit, but I'm looking at the numbers here. So it says the cost of this work is identified for $55,000. We borrowed an original $600,000. The estimated cost of the entire amount of work will be $873,000. $55,000 plus $600,000 doesn't equal $873,000. So will we just add to our next year's borrowing to make up this difference, do we expect?
Yeah, correct. And to be clear to you, this agreement is just for the $55,000. There'll be another agreement that presumably would come once this is completed sometime next springish, winterish time. That will have this full agreement with OPN for the schematic design through construction. So you're just approving the $55,000 now, and then the rest of that will come later in the spring, and then what we need to make up for, we'll borrow at that time.
And is the 55 part of the 873?
It does not appear to be. It looks like 873 is
Would be the additional, like the additional
beyond
cost?
the 55. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else on this item? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 8B, 2025 Draft Budget Review.
You want this right, Mark?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so Jeff will get me hooked up here.
Let's switch.
All right, so let's talk budget again. So since the last meeting, nothing too material has changed from the budget. Just a few minor changes, getting some more accurate numbers, just trying to tighten some things up. We're still balanced with $42,000 contingency. And as we talked last time, it's likely will not qualify for the expenditure restraint payment in the 26 budget, so holding some of that money aside for making up that gap in 26 would be a good thing. That amount is about $58,000, so we're good portion of the way there. We still have just one really last major outstanding unknown. That's the employee benefit open enrollment that will continue through next Friday, or actually this Friday, excuse me. We're not expecting any changes through that, but you never know. Somebody may sign up for health insurance that didn't have it, or for a family plan that had a single. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we certainly have some contingency to address any of those. And then we just continue to keep doing quality control on the budget. So for the plan moving forward, tonight I'm going to go through any recap we need to do on we covered last time. We'll talk special revenue funds, utilities, and tax increment finance districts. The plan is to have the public hearing and budget approval for November 18th. So in order to line up the proper noticing under state law for all of that, we have to have that information to the Observer this Friday. So usually at this meeting, we're looking for the board to give us the direction that the budget's in acceptable shape generally. No major changes are expected beyond this point. And we can submit that public notice, and there is a budget summary that goes along with that, so people can see what the budget looks like. There'll also be a resolution after this item to consider the levy limit exception related to the fire EMS district. All of the town partners have now approved the resolution, so we'll take that up tonight. And we can still continue to talk about budget at the next meeting on the 4th. Even though we've sent off the notice and everything for the 18th, we can still make some minor changes and things like that on the 4th, and then we can talk more on the 18th ahead of the public hearing and any final adjustments there. So I guess first, is there any questions related to anything that we covered last time? General fund, the capital funds, and then the debt service funds. Any questions I can cover for that?
Lynn, please.
Sorry. Page 240 of the packet. Martin has been very kind to me in going through some of these numbers behind the scenes so that I can kind of understand. But one of them I need to understand, and I think helping the public understand it would be helpful as well. Under the other general government, we're seeing for that general section a pretty large increase of 78% change, right?
Yes, yep.
Okay, great. Can you explain what this section is and what the explanation behind the jump is?
Yes, so the big bulk of that is this other contracted services here, which is at 30,000. That is to account for two special projects that are anticipated. One is additional referendum work. So as we go into the spring, assuming we move ahead with a referendum, we're going to have some consultant work in terms of the PR side of things. And then the second one is the market look at our employee compensation plan. So by policy, we want to look at that every 3 to 5 years. We'll be in our third year and then going on to our fourth year in 26. So we want to take a look at our wages again and make sure that we're keeping up with the market, and so that 30,000 there is set aside for that, and that is intended to be offset by funds that we have on hand, so fund balance that's available.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, I guess you can go ahead.
All right, now I'm gonna scoot ahead here for a little bit. Thumbnails here. That's probably a better way to do it. All right, so yeah. So for tonight, as I said, we'll cover these what they're called special revenue funds, and so these are funds that relate in some way to our government services. The only difference is sometimes there are reasons that we have to set up special accounts, sometimes by law, to account for certain funds that we have. And then there's also a lot of other, I guess, compelling policy reasons to do it, as far as sometimes we want to set aside grant monies or donated monies that people provide us into a special fund. Sometimes it's just helpful for people to know that it's being accounted for separately and they know their dollars are going to what they specifically wanted it to go to. But oftentimes these funds are for things like irregular revenues that we receive or grant specific revenues, things that we can't really account for on a regular basis that we would want to put towards general operating expenditures, because we wouldn't be really necessarily able to count on it year after year after year. So I'm going to talk about and highlight just a few of the things that I think are notable, and I'll probably scroll through quite a few of them just because a lot of them don't really have a lot of activity that occur in them from year to year. And so I'll just highlight a couple things, but there's certainly some detail in here on what some of these funds are and what they're about that you can go back and reference. For the sick leave fund, there's nothing really notable in 2025, but I'll just address that. So this fund is set up for, we have what amounts to is like a legacy employee benefit that is no longer offered to all employees. And this pays out sick time to certain employees that are still employed with the village. And there's only a few of them left. Occasionally, as you can see here, we'll have some rather large payouts that we need to accommodate for these sick leave payouts. And we're in a pretty good position to address those as they come along. A couple of years ago, there was quite a bit that got paid out. It was like a $200-some thousand that came out of this when we had 2 retirements that occurred. So there's nothing that's occurring there right now. We have some money that we've put away in there. It'll earn some interest over these coming years, and then we should be in position to make those payouts as they occur. The library is another one that we put under these funds. The one thing I'll note with the library is, and I think I maybe say this every year, the library is a unique animal in Wisconsin local government. So they are a village function, but they have some unique independence that occurs that's outlined in state law. And for the village board, you have the control of the budget for the library, but once you set and approve that budget, you pretty much lose control of those funds. It becomes pretty much the library's stewardship of those funds at that point, and they get to decide how they want to spend those funds. Same thing goes with buildings, property. Once those things have been designated for library purposes, it really becomes the authority of the library board to administer those things. Same thing with employees to a certain degree. Jennifer reports directly to the library board. She doesn't report up through the administrator like the other department heads. So she's accountable to the board, and things like employee wages are entirely set by the library board. The village board doesn't have the decision there. So I'd just like to make that reminder every year, and so we set aside their funds in these separate revenue funds so that we can easily segregate what is under their authority and their responsibility. They have 2 funds designated for them. One is just called the library fund. This is the fund that they have for sort of those irregular grants and revenues that they receive from time to time that they use for irregular expenditures, projects, and different things that they want to purchase. This was where the new building of the library was expended out of. The actual operating fund is also in here, and so this is basically the general fund, but just for the library. So it houses their employee wages, benefits, everything that they need to keep their lights on and keep their operations operating. And there's nothing, just like with the general fund and the rest of the services that we offer this year, there's nothing too overly notable to address in this budget. They put the budget together consistent with the board's direction and the resolution that was adopted earlier this year. And they do actually adopt our employee compensation plan. So they have followed what the village has adopted. So they are following that. But by and large, there isn't really anything too notable here, I would say, to highlight. I think one of the things that they're trying to figure out, similar to this building, is just what are going to be the normal, regular annual costs for operating their building. And so I think over a couple of years, we'll start to generate a pretty solid pattern of costs that will start to be more manageable and more easily identifiable in the budget. Any questions on library stuff at all? This is probably the most notable special revenue fund of all of them. All right. So we talked a little bit about this one at the last meeting, the cable TV franchise fund. So this is the fund that we expend funds for OCA Media. So we receive revenues from cable franchise fees, and then we also have a state aid program related to replacing those fees that come into this budget, and then we expend most of those funds off to OCA Media. And as we talked about last time, this fund is now operating in an annual deficit for at least this year and now again next year. And right now, by my projection, we'll likely be out of funds within this fund by 2027 or 2028. So I know I've talked to Tom and the folks at OCA about, that's pending, that's coming our way. And at some point, we need to think about how to address that. Once we expend all those funds that are available, and OCA Media wants additional resources from the village in the future, the only way that we can really do that effectively is through the general fund. And so now it'll be competing for the rest of the funds that all the other departments compete for. And obviously, there's a big challenge with that. The only thing that I wanted to just verify was at the presentation with OCA Media, they had, it was about a $3,000 increase option to their annual contribution. We have it set right now as the same as this year's. And there was some discussion about maybe we should just give them the increase that they requested, which I think was a 3% increase. I think it's about $3,000. And we certainly can do that. There's money there to do that. There's about $60,000. Well, there'll be a little bit less than that. There'll be something like 40-ish, 35 to 40 by the end of this year. By the end of 2025. So there's funds to play with there. $3,000 isn't going to move the needle too far one way or the other, but we do have the pending depletion of the fund in a few years.
What's the board's pleasure on this item? Carly?
Is the question, do we want to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say yes, I would move to increase it. I think that OCA provides a great service for our community and does it with a really tight budget.
Yeah.
I'll second the motion.
Third.
I'm in favor as
Jason?
well.
Okay, yes, so we'd like to do that.
Yeah, we'll adjust the number there. All right. A couple of these I'm gonna probably breeze by, because there really isn't a terrible amount of activity, or activity is pretty relatively straightforward. One thing I'll just note, cemetery fund, last year we had talked about, historically, and at least recently, we've had, I think it was 3 or 4 different cemetery-related funds, between special revenue and the fiduciary funds that we have. And last year we talked about just combining all of these things into one fund and putting all those funds together. So we have done that, and that's what this is here. This is the cemetery fund. It has $150,000 in it at the end of 2023. And one thing that Jeff and the Public Works Department had put forward was they want to spend $20,000 of that to do some dead and diseased tree removals in 2025. A few more funds, police special revenue. They expend a lot of their various community events and things of that nature out of this fund. The refuse and recycling pickup, this is sort of an in-out. The revenue is our user charges for curbside pickup. The out is the money spent on Pelletary to do that. Tourism fund, Elise just gave a good overview of that. We have a room tax in Oregon. 70% is retained for tourism purposes, and that's under the jurisdiction of the Tourism Commission. 30% we keep, and we use that as a general revenue in our general fund to fund operations. Canine fund for the canine program. We do a lot of great donations and fundraising out of that fund, which covers the costs of that program. The Affordable Housing Fund, I'll just note here, so as a little bit of an explainer, the tax increment law allows communities to keep a tax increment district open for 1 year longer than what would typically be allowed. And in that 1 year extension, for whatever tax increment that you collect, you can put that towards affordable housing projects and related expenditures. So the village had a tax increment finance district that was closing in 2018, and they did just that. They extended it for a year, and we got something almost $500,000 that was put into this fund. It's been spent on a couple of projects. One was for Genesis Housing in 2020. And then we also have some earmarked for the Habitat for Humanity housing project that's still ongoing. And so we have about $150,000 that is approximately still available in that fund that we certainly offer up when there's some opportunities out there and when people ask about it. So there won't be any way to replenish these funds once they're gone unless we have another district closing, which won't be for at least about 10 years, I think. So that is what that is all about. The Public Art Fund, we've talked about that in recent meetings. They've done some great job of getting some grants and donations. That's where all this money goes, and this is where it is expended out of. Community Events Fund, we created this last year. This is where donations and things for like the Sounds of Summer concert series, some expenses come out of there, that sort of thing. Any other questions on special revenue funds?
No.
All right.
Don't see any.
All right, so let's talk tax increment finance districts. So village has 4 TIF districts. They, for budgeting purposes, they're kind of scattered out through special revenue and then also debt service funds, and they're both those budgets are contained within the packet here that you can look at. But every year we put the annual report for each of these districts in the budget document. This report has to be prepared. It's required to be prepared every year. It's prepared by Ehlers, obviously. These reports have to go to the Joint Review Board, which is a multi-jurisdictional committee of the village, the school district, the county, and tech college. And they have some authority over the approval and amending of tax increment districts, because obviously they're giving up some of their tax revenue when these districts are created, so they have some authority to say yay or nay to that. And so these reports go to them every year, and they just cover exactly what the purposes of all these districts are, some of the background information, and how they performed financially the past year. We talked a little bit about these districts last time and just talking about the tax levy. I guess just to highlight a couple things for each of them. So tax increment district 3 is basically a defunct district. It was pretty much replaced by tax increment district 5, which overlaid over most of it or all of it plus beyond it. This fund was used to spend quite a bit of money on some downtown improvements that happened mid 2000s, early 2010s. And so right now it's pretty much focused on trying to pay off all of that debt. And it doesn't generate enough increment to cover all of those costs. So the general taxpayer and general levy covers some of that, as we talked about last time. And so the expectation is that will continue through 2028. So we've got a couple more years of tax levy support needed to pay off those debt service costs. And then at that point, starting in as early as 28 and in full swing in 2029, there's going to be quite a significant repayment of support that's come from the general tax levy over the next 10 years through 2039. It will repay about $2.5 million of 2.5. Yeah, there'll be still $629,000 left unpaid by the closure of the TID. So it's a little bit over $3 million that needs to be repaid, and only 2.5 of it will be repaid. But every year there's going to be about, as you can see here, about $200,000 coming into the general fund from this district for about 10 years. So it's something to think about in terms of how the village will want to use those dollars. Tax increment district 4, as we mentioned last time, this one has also needed tax levy support in the past, but has gotten to a point where it is performing that it no longer needs that. So that's dropping off this year, and this analysis has the fund being able to start repaying about $792,000 in tax levy support, start paying that back in 2030. So there's a few hundred thousands of dollars that will be repaid over about a 5-year period within there too. So that's on top of what TIF 3 will be repaying. So there's going to be some interesting amount of funds coming in that I think the village will have to think about how we want to use all of those things. So this district is down by on the southeast side of the community. It's the Culvers area and headquarters and all of that. And so this last year, the full value of the Prairie Brook apartments hit the assessment, and so that is where you see some of the really big increases in values, and now you can really start to see the district starting to perform financially very well. TIF District 5, as I mentioned, overlaid a lot of the downtown area plus a lot of the north side of the village. This one had a little bit of levy support a few years ago. It has some repayment to do, but has been off needing that for a couple of years. It has about just under $300,000 of support to repay that it will do in 2026 and 2027 based on this projection. But this district got off to a pretty good start. It had the Tycee expansion started it off, so it started off performing quite well. And this one will actually may even be able to be closed early based upon this analysis. So it's performing quite well and making those funds. For TID 6, So this was one we created last year. This is just over here on the west side of town. It's the North Point development. It's a single property TID for that affordable housing project. It's created just at the end of last year, so we don't have to do a formal annual report yet this year. But we do have the analysis in there moving forward. Right now, it just has some administrative costs that it's accumulated because of just getting the TID off the ground. I think this analysis is a little conservative because I don't think we're going to have any administrative costs for this district other than filing reports, maybe a couple $1,000s. And so I think these numbers here will look a lot better right off the bat. But it's not expected that this district is going to need any levy support. The project is happening right off the bat with the creation of the district. So we should start generating increment off of that as soon as next year. And so that will go to pay part of the incentive that was provided, but then the village will also keep some of those funds as well. Any questions on tax increment finance districts?
No, sir.
All right. So let's talk utilities. Ellers was here back in September. They did the presentation on our cash flows for our utilities. So the things that I think I would note about the utilities, number one is, I think I note this every year, but the utility budgets look much different than our normal government budgets. They do a different style of accounting in the way that they do their budgets, and they have to do that due to regulatory requirements. So there's things that, number one, look different, but things that are included that aren't included in our government budgets, things that are included in our government budgets but are not included in the utility budgets. So I have a little bit of a informational blurb on that here if you want to learn a little bit more about that. But as far as the water utility is concerned, I think the big thing there is, as we've discussed, the need for another water rate case, which we talked about. So presumably this time next year, early 2026, we're looking at needing a 50% increase to the revenue generated off of rates. And so one of the things that will be happening this year, and costs are in the budget, is to do have Ellers assist us with the water rate case, and of course submitting it to the Public Service Commission and going through that process. Other than that, the operations of the utility there's nothing notable to note there as far as differences from this year to from this year to next year. But just accounting for normal revenues and then expected expenses there. Sewer utility is a little bit of the same story. The difference there is we don't have to go through the extended process of doing the water rate case with the Public Service Commission. The rates can be adjusted by the village board. And as we talked with Ellers, we're looking at a 35% increase that we would like to implement for this 2025 budget. So what we would be asking the board when this budget is approved on November 18th is to also approve a resolution increasing the rates in tandem with that. And so that that is reflected in the revenues that are accounted for in the line item budget. We already have the 35% increase accounted for there. But beyond that, I don't have anything else notable to address there. Is there any comments or questions on sewer and water utility? Nope. All right. And then the last one is a quick one. Fiduciary funds, any money that we hold in trust for anybody. We have one trust related to a library donation, and that is all.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to authorize staff to publish the public hearing notice and a budget summary. Tim and Carlene. Questions, discussion? Okay, we have a motion second. All those in favor? Sorry?
I have a comment.
Didn't see your hand, sorry.
Go ahead. Did you want to
You
go
had a
first?
question?
I was just saying to Lynn, who is a fellow teacher, former teacher, that your teachers must have really loved how thorough you are. I certainly do, because this would be Greek to me, and I appreciate the detail and the explanation of the detail, because again, it would be over my head. So thank you.
Anybody else?
I'll pass credit on to the staff and department heads. I'm just the vehicle of delivery. They did. The numbers and all the work was all on them.
Okay, we have a motion second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. 8C, resolution number 24-29, resolution in favor of exceeding local levy limit for charges assessed to the Oregon Area Fire EMS District. Staff recommendation, motion to approve. Amanda and Tim, I think we're all pretty aware of what this is about. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 9, new business, none. Item 10, reports of village officers, department heads, and consultants. This is for information only, no action by the village board will be taken. A, village administrator report included in your packet. Okay. Item B, police chief report, 2023 Oregon Police Department annual report.
Yes, so first of all, I apologize, this is coming so late. This is not ideal to bring it to you in October. It's more of a January, February, March type project, but unfortunately, just we had to prioritize some projects. But I did want to go over this annual report with you a little bit more in detail than I normally do, because it was a very challenging year and a bit unique for us. You know, the structure's in there of what we looked like when we were in 2023. But then I'm just going to move to the goals we had made in 2023, which still, first one still exists, the 2-officer minimum. We're still working towards that. Again, we do have 2 officers normally working right now, but it's just, one is unfortunately sometimes on overtime, which can cause burnout, so we're monitoring that. In 2023, a goal was to equip our personnel with the less lethal launchers. We're getting more and more of these situations where a person is armed, and if we have the time and the personnel on scene, we can use this as a less lethal option to resolve the matter quickly and with the least amount of injury possible. We also needed to transition from the outdated tasers to a newer version. They were becoming outdated. We implemented the drone program. Things are going really well with the drone program. I plan on, with future reports, yearly reports, that I bring you some of that data to show how well that's going. We added some ballistic plates to our vests. We were going to more gun calls where rifles were involved or suspected to be involved. Our normal tactical vest won't take a rifle round. It will go through. So this will provide some additional protection to our officers. We had the goal for school safety work. Obviously, that's a priority to everybody in this community. So we continue to work on that. We'll talk more about that later in the report. And we added a bicycle officer to our now 2-person team. Bicycle officers are very effective when it comes to especially the parades. They can get in and out of the flow of traffic very easily to anything that's going on. And then one thing that has been delayed is the self-defense program, which we will continue. I hope to have implemented December of 2024, if everything goes okay. The goals we set for 2024 were, again, that 2-officer minimum. We're going to carry that on. Replacing our handguns, so the manufacturer recommends every 7 years to replace them. So we moved to just the newer version of what we currently carry. What we did add, though, to all of the handguns is the optic. So it sits on top of the handgun. It creates a substantially larger amount of accuracy. We've already seen proof of that on the range. We're seeing that just across the board with the profession. People are officers are moving to that. We've increased our efforts for recruitment. That was another goal for 2024. In fact, today, we sent Lieutenant Niehaus up to Kenosha in an effort to encourage students up there to apply. We are moving around to these different fairs and then throughout the community events. And I do think our recruitment efforts are pretty strong. Again, still a goal to create that women's self-defense program. From 2023 to 2024, we did lose one of our instructors. And to keep this goal solid, we need to find people that will stay with the department and that have been with us for a while to where we feel comfortable. It's a big investment. We have to send them to Detroit. We always need 2 instructors there, certified through the training. It's a full week, again, very expensive. So I'm going later next month as another instructor. The program ideally calls for women to instruct, but we are determined to get this program off its feet. So it's coming. The last goal is a difficult one, and I wanted to explain this a little bit more. So we lost some very experienced staff from 23 to 24. Not only was there a lot of experience there road-wise, but they were also instructors in many disciplines. We have to constantly train in certain disciplines like firearms, defense and arrest tactics, emergency vehicle operations, those sort of things. And in losing that, we had to really sit down and quickly figure out what we're going to do with this now new challenge. The problem is the Department of Justice also has a pretty high standard for who they'll allow to become instructors. You have to have so many years of service. You have to have certain credentials, and it's expensive, and it takes time. So we're right now working on quite a bit of our staff getting out to instructor classes so that we can keep moving, keep this momentum. And honestly, it provides opportunity to our staff. The other goal attached to that same bulletin is field training officers. So as you know, we recently promoted 2 sergeants, one of which was a FTO. We're hiring more now, putting people through field training more, causes burnout when you have somebody with you every day, all day, watching them. So we're really trying to work on how we're gonna get more FTOs so that we can get people trained when we get them hired. As far as the instructor side goes, we don't have a lot of options right now because many of our staff are under 3 years. That's one of the criteria. So what we'll do to make things work for the next 3 to 5 years is the Lieutenant Schaub and I will pick up some of that slack. I don't think it would hurt to have a firearms instructor that's female. You know, I've been working for this department for almost 20 years, and we're in a consortium with 5 other departments, and we've never had a female instructor. So why not? I don't mind shooting, so I'll do that. And then, and I'm already an instructor anyway, so it's an easy discipline to add on. Lieutenant's gonna add on an armor, and he's gonna become a taser instructor. So we're pivoting, you know, and just coming up with some different ideas for a while. But then once we get these officers more experience and more years on, we obviously will reevaluate and get those opportunities to them. Just to recap the new hires we've had. Then we get to the citizens' complaints. I always come to the board and to the community to report these things. For 2023, we only had 1 complaint. I guess an easy way to sum it up is, I won't say it was, but it certainly followed the rhetoric of a sovereign citizen. This person complained because we took action and they didn't feel they were a citizen. So they shouldn't have to abide by that law. So we worked through it. Just to quickly recap what that looks like, when a person files a complaint, we have a policy on it. We take it in. Our lieutenant investigates it, looks at video, reports, talks to people, whatever needs to be done, and then types up a factual memo to me. I then review everything as a secondary person, and then we send the complainant a disposition letter. And if we did, if it is found to be sustained, I'm very honest with them that we did. We did find it. So I was glad to see we only had one for the year. I'm actually gonna skip use of force and save that for the end, because I kind of want to end with that. Calls for service, we dropped down a little bit. I do strongly believe that's because we've seen this uptick in large-scale disturbances and domestics, and emergency detentions, which is pulling us off the road for longer periods of time. And with our staffing levels, it's going to create less ability for us to be proactive on the road with traffic. So that's where you're gonna see that drop. As soon as we're up to staff and we're at that 2-officer minimum, that number will raise. So, I'm not gonna go through the uniform crime reporting. We did have a nice uptick in 2023 for the amount of drugs we took in for our med drop box. So typically what we see is it goes up and down. I think people will pick one summer to do their full clean out of their closets, and then they let us know. So very happy with the program, and it's going well. For training, we just put in a few photos just to give our community members an idea of what our training looks like. It is intense. It's we push our officers to be in these high stressful situations, making good decisions. Some of the ones that I thought were the best trainings we went to for 2023 were the barricaded subject training, where they actually had to take down the door. It was a steel door. We had active threat training. That was phenomenal. The less lethal launcher training and the drone training. So you see the photos of that. A lot of questions I get nowadays, especially after the Mount Horeb situation, relate to what sort of planning, what sort of work we do for large-scale emergencies. So I gave just some summary of that. You'll see in the picture up there, that's Lieutenant and I sitting in the Command Vehicle 1. We, every year, loan that out from Dane County Emergency Management. We have that set up in a remote location during Summerfest and work through there. It was incredibly helpful this last year with the storm that hit just to the north and just to the south of us. It literally we were in the middle, but we were able to monitor everything coming in and get our resources to the right locations. We do a lot of tabletop exercises with the school district. In 2024, we did 2 with each school. And then even though Forest Edge and Brooklyn Elementary are not in our jurisdictions, we attend because we need to be that good partner for them. But in hearing, well, what's tabletop exercise look like? This is a visual of what it looks like. We have maps out. We're walking through the different steps of how to respond and looking at the different challenges we'll see. The other photograph here is of Detective Navarro. She's got the drone up in the air over Summerfest monitoring the crowd, and we can actually visually see that as she's doing that right from the command post. So there's great things to have. This is just SRO Kyle Shuey before he got promoted. This was his last school year. As you can see, he was really happy to move on in his supervisory role.
School's out.
Yes, 2 of the goals were adding a bicycle officer to our now 2-unit bicycle program. So there's that, and then the drone program too. K9 Archie, it gives you an idea of what it looks like when he's off training, and then some of the community events he goes to. Our K9 program does not exist unless we have great fundraising. Even our own village staff has participated in our village board. And we are very fortunate to have a good budget because of it. So we definitely wanted to recognize that. The Red, White, and Blue event, there's a lot of pictures in there about that. We had a big year in 2023 with a lot of achievements. So we really wanted to highlight this event. We had, you'll see a photograph with Officer Bollig, and there's a little infant in the photograph. That's because Officer Bollig actually saved the life of that little infant. So there's a lot of great awards that were given. One of the other awards I want to talk about is the Dane County Chiefs of Police Association started an award ceremony on their own, just recognizing great work. And then basically a chief could nominate their staff member for the award, but ultimately it would be decided by the association who would get it. Detective Navarro actually did receive an award through that organization, a Meritorious Award, regarding a barricaded subject that she negotiated for 3 hours and also saving a life. So she did some great work there. There's then some community events we touch on. Our annual report's rather long, but the purpose for it is not only to inform our community of what's going on and all of you, but we have found that it's a recruitment tool. We're finding a lot of people that are applying with our agency are reciting some of the things they actually saw in the annual report. So we leaned into it. So we really tried to show all of the community events we do, the positive interactions we have with the community. And the Special Olympics get their own page because they're just such a great community. So the one thing I do want to end on is our use of force incidents page. So just to go through that first with policy, anytime any sworn member uses force, they have to fill out a form that identifies the type of force they used, the person they used it on, the case number, everything. So if you have 4 officers on scene and all 4 use force, they all have to fill out a form. Then what happens is their immediate supervisor reviews the incident, and then secondly, the lieutenant that supervises that division reviews that incident as well. If anything is found to be wrong, I'm immediately notified. But also if the officers did something really well, we also provide that positive feedback. So with that said, out of the 10,424 calls for service, our officers only used force 34 times. That's 0.32% of calls for service that force are used. And, how does that stack up to prior years? So you got 0.32 for 23. In 22, you had 0.29. And in 21, you had 0.16. So we definitely are upticking. We pay attention to these numbers as we're going through the year. We put in there the use of force separated by race and residency. But what stuck out to me, when we talk about the types of force used, it's not uncommon for escort compliance hold to be the most common. It's the lowest level of physical force. What did stick out to me, though, was firearms unholstered but not fired. So why do we want to review those? Is that is a pretty significant matter, is for an officer to pull out their gun on scene. So we looked at those. The reason it caught my eye was if we looked at 2022 versus 2023, we had in 23 11 incidents, in 22 5. That's a 120% increase. What's going on? So I looked into it, and if I were in your shoes, I'd be going, well, why are we doing this? Why are we pulling our gun on scenes? So I'll give you an idea of what these calls look like. So in 2023, a domestic where a son was threatened to kill his mother. So we showed up. We ended up finding him hiding under the deck. Obviously, we have to go in thinking that he is armed if he's threatening to kill his mother. The second one, a Czech person where a gun was pulled on a former boyfriend. We were able to end that peacefully. The next one was the officer-involved shooting on Eagle Drive. The next one, a Czech person for an armed subject outside of an apartment complex with a firearm. I do suspect that one was a kind of an ambush type call. We were very fortunate to end the call safely. We were called by a female who reported her husband was suicidal and possibly armed. The next one, we were called to Brooklyn to assist with a shots fired call. The next one was a domestic where a suspect left the scene. He had warrants, and the warrants indicated that he should be considered armed and dangerous. We were able to locate the person and take him into custody. Next one, resident requested Chuck welfare at a residence because she was afraid it was going to be shot up. We later found the suspect armed with a hammer after the suspect had been smashing out several car windows. The next one was a domestic where one of the parties had a knife. The next one was assisting the county with a high-risk traffic stop where it was suspected the suspect was armed. And the last one was a call of a report for a 13-year-old that was just shot by her mother, ended up being a swatting call. So 11 incidents like that is pretty alarming, but to know they all ended well, nobody was injured. The reason I talk about this is I think it leans into why it is so important to make sure we retain the experience we have, that we get our staff trained well, and have them well equipped. And just going back to the goals and the accomplishments when we've been able to achieve, certainly with your support, I think there's purpose there. I hope you all see that that's kind of where we've really guided what training we're doing, what equipment we're purchasing, and also just really focusing on slowing down and trying to get more staff there and end these situations as safely as possible. So I know it was a lot, but if I were in your shoes, I kind of want to know a little bit more of the nuances of the types of calls. But I'm happy to take any questions.
Lynn, please.
I just am going to applaud this work. It does not bother me that it comes to me in October because we all know sitting here that you spend hours and hours every day, every month, giving us monthly reports at the village board meetings, and just the investigation that you did within this chart. I mean, a lot of people would put this chart and send it on. And so for you to go back through, I think is just a great example of the work that you do and that you ask your officers to do. And I think that there's, just a lot here that I think should tell the public and our community that you're doing really good work to make sure that everything is investigated and checked when things need to be checked, and, uncovering things that need to be uncovered. I just think that's very important. That we get to experience it, but that the public knows. And then the last thing I was just going to mention is that they're doing a drug take-back event this Saturday in partnership with the police department. So if you've done your clean out this summer, and this is the summer you did your clean out, you can stop by the police department on Saturday morning to donate those materials. You can always do it because it's always open, but there is an event on Saturday for that. So thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Thank you, Chief. 10C, Director of Finance Report, Annual Billing Permits, Impact Fees, and Connection Fees, Collections ended September 2024. The details are in your packet. Lisa's here if you have questions. Seeing none. 10D, Village Clerk Report, in-person absentee early voting schedule for November 5th, 2024 general election.
I don't have really anything to report. It starts tomorrow.
Okay.
There's a nice pamphlet in the packet. Share with your friends and neighbors.
Great. Item 11, announcements and miscellaneous business. A, announcements, comments, communications, upcoming meetings and events, and miscellaneous business. Village board members will provide brief statements, but no discussion. Anyone have announcements? Carly.
So I have two announcements. The first one is that Candy sent out to all staff and to members of committees throughout the village last Thursday the invitation to the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion pilot community conversation. Thus far, we've had 5 people respond. We're really hoping that we have 35. So if you haven't responded yet, please do, because we really need the feedback and the practice and then the feedback for this community conversation. It will be at the public library, 6 o'clock next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow. And then on a different note, I just want to make a comment that I'm a little disturbed, and some people may know that lots and lots of political signs have been stolen and vandalized this season, this political season. And it's really bothersome to me because it just is such, it's upsetting that we can't have differences of opinion and be respectful of one another's differences. And so when signs are stolen, it, to me, and this is my personal opinion, not speaking for the board, it's a sign of, it's a form of intimidation that I believe is really uncalled for. And I hope that the people who are doing this will stop. Some of these signs are large and are in with fence posts. And so it takes a great deal of determination to get them out of the ground. And again, it's very upsetting. I know that I have reported them to the sheriff because some of them have happened in the town. But there are also signs that have been taken out of people's yards in the village, and I've asked them to call you, but I don't think they have because they call me. and so I can't report for other people, but I'm asking for people to please be respectful that just because someone has an opinion different from yours does not give you the right to take the sign from their yard or their property. Thanks.
Anybody else? Lynn?
How many times can I raise my hand tonight? So sorry. On Saturday, we're having the trunk or treat event here at Village Hall from 3 to 5. It looks like it's going to be beautiful weather, so knock on wood that doesn't change. Feel free to stop by with family and friends and kids and adults and anybody you can think of. We're going to have village board members with their trunks all decorated. Mr. Van Kempen's so excited. We're going to have
My wife
the police.
is.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Liz. We're going to have the police department, the fire district is going to be here. Some local businesses will also be here as well. So I think it will be a nice way for families to get out and have a safe space to walk around and get some treats and just enjoy this new space that we have this year here at the new Village Hall.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Item 11B, future agenda items. This item gives village board members the opportunity to place a topic on a future agenda for discussion and/or potential action. Anyone? No, hearing none. Okay, item 12, closed session business. The village board will convene in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85, sub 1, sub C, to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercise responsibility. Specifically, to consider employment and performance information involving specific public works department employees under the jurisdiction of the board. Looking for a motion to move in closed session. Tim and Amanda. It's a roll call vote.
Van Kampen,
Yes.
Mankey,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Kirchdorfer,
Yes.
Higgins,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
and Beshen.
Yes.
Okay, we are in closed session. Thank you.